Hey guys, welcome back to the Fergie Time Podcast. Today we will be discussing who should be the first two inductees into the Premier League Hall of Fame. So, it was announced that on March 19th, the Premier League will be opening or announcing the first two inductees into the Hall of Fame, and I thought that we should give it a crack before they announce theirs. So, I just want to say, for criteria, we can only judge these players based on their work they've done in the Premier League, not what they've done in other leagues. Something to keep in mind for players who have maybe come in and had an impactful stint, but haven't been there for a long period of time. And also, the Premier League started in 1992. And if we're going to be very select with this, it's going to be hard to find a big group of players. So we're going to have to be very critical. So for my first selection, I am going to choose none other than Thierry Henry. And Thierry Henry was a special player. And I think this award, or like being placed into the Hall of Fame as one of the first players, in my opinion, should be the first player, proves his level of talent. And Henry was one of the most skillful players the Premier League has ever seen. Also, just a deadly goal scorer. And so he had won 4 Golden Boot awards in the Premier League, more than any other player. And I think that shows his clinical ability in and around the net and just his goal scoring prowess. He also was the 2-time Premier League Player of the Season, which, again, just proving if you win that award, you are the best player that year. And he was the best player twice, at least in the Premier League, and many other times within that conversation. And I think what is so special about Henry was, although he was like in some fantastic Arsenal sides, including the Invincibles, that he still stood out as the best player every single year. And I think that's something really important to note, because although there's other players out there who I think are very good and also very deserving, I think these first two inductees need to be players that, even when surrounded like around the best, they were still head and shoulders above the competition, and Henry checks all those boxes for me. Looking at some statistics, in 258 appearances, Henry scored a total of 176 goals. So the goal to appearance ratio is very, very impressive. He had also, at Arsenal, had 157 wins to only 39 losses. So he clearly was an impactful player in terms of winning. And I think the value of a good player, or the value of a player that should be in the Hall of Fame, is someone who, when they step in your side, they make you a better side and overall contribute to you becoming a more winning side. And that's something Henry clearly did. And also, for his goal per game ratio, it was 0.68, which is higher than the likes of Shearer, which is higher than the likes of other fantastic goal scorers that we've seen. So not only did he score a lot of goals in his time in the Premier League, he was very efficient in doing so. And I think that's something, a testament to his great finishing and for his knack for finding the back of the net. Again, I want to touch on the Arsenal Invincible season. So no other club has done this. And who was the lead proponent in this Invincible season? Obviously, the likes of Vieira and other players contributed massively, but Henry, his contribution to that Invincible season is you can't take that away from him. It's something that no other players, other than the people on the Arsenal side, have done. And on that Invincible side, he was the best player. So in my eyes, between his skill level, his ability to find the back of the net, and also just his impact at Arsenal Football Club, I think Thierry Henry would be my first selection into the Premier League Hall of Fame. For my second selection into the Premier League Hall of Fame, it is going to be the top goal scorer in the Premier League all time. It is Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer, a 3-time Gold Boot Award winner, a 1-time Premier League Player of the Season, and he's also won the Premier League once, leading Blackburn to their only Premier League title win ever. So Shearer was just a different type of player. If you want to talk about true goal scorers in the Premier League, his name has to come up first. And I think what Shearer did, which was so impressive, was he went to clubs like Blackburn and Newcastle, who were still very good in their day, but allowed them or lifted them up to be able to compete with the biggest clubs in the world at the time, the Manchester Uniteds of the world. And although at Newcastle they were unable to capture a title, his legacy there lives on. And I mean, just the way Newcastle fans talk about Shearer, the aura around him is is one of a legend, and I think that's very representative of who he was. In terms of just goal scoring, I mean, there's no player in the Premier League who's ever been able to score like Shearer. He's in 441 appearances, he scored 260 goals. The next closest is Rooney, I think in the low 200s. So no one has even come close to scoring as many goals as Shearer. And also I want to note, I'm not just looking at statistics. I want to say that part of the reason why Shearer is going to be in this Hall of Fame as one of the first 2 selections for me personally is the longevity of his career. Like, even at the end of his career, he was netting a bunch of goals. And although Shearer wasn't on the most dominant teams like Manchester United or like Arsenal with Henry, he was still able to affect the winning at both Blackburn and Newcastle massively. During his time in the Premier League, Shearer won 203 games and lost 129. So with smaller clubs, he was able still to achieve a massive winning record. I also want to note that his goal per game ratio, although not as good as Henry's, is still fantastic at 0.59 goals per game. So very impressive again. That means that he was able to score in a large volume of matches. We're talking 400 odd appearances and was still able to score at roughly every other game. Who else could do that? Who else has the longevity, the ability to do that? And I don't think there is a player like that. And I think one thing that also helps Shearer's case is the legacy, I said, is the aura around him. Like, this is a man who just has left a massive impact on the Premier League, and I don't think you can ever go on thinking about the Premier League without Alan Shearer coming up. So for me, Shearer's got to be the second selection. I do want to note, this was a very close decision, and my honorable mention in this video, someone who, if he were to get into the Hall of Fame and it wasn't to be Shearer or Henry, and this was the person to be it, I wouldn't have a problem with it. So my honorable mention for the first 2 inductees would be Ryan Giggs. I mean, this guy is just a champion. What he achieved at United was insane. And we're talking about the longevity of Shearer's career. Let's talk about the longevity of Giggs' career. I mean, playing up until 2014, that is just insane. So at Manchester United, Ryan Giggs scored roughly 102 goals, I believe, and had 164 assists. But let's not dive into the goals and assists, because he was much more than just a goal scorer or a player who could do both. He could contribute as well. And I think more so what Ryan Giggs was a winner at Manchester United. 13 Premier League titles. And you may say, oh, well, look at the talent around him. Look at Scholes. Look at Ronaldo. Look at Rooney. Look at Van Nistelrooy. Look at Cantona. Another one who I would consider for this. But I think Giggs, his long-term impact on the Premier League is something that cannot be stated enough. He was consistently great from the moment he entered the league all the way until the end. And Giggs is just a special player, and I think without him being a part of United, they wouldn't have achieved the amount of trophies they had. Because although I think the one knock on Giggs is throughout his career, he wasn't always the best player at United, whereas Henry and Shearer, wherever they played, they were the top dogs. At United, when Ronaldo was there, Ronaldo was a better player. When Cantona was there, you could argue Cantona was more of a star than Giggs. But I think what Giggs does so well, and why Giggs, in my opinion, should be right in this conversation with Henry and Shearer, is the consistency. And he held this standard, this level, although it wasn't on maybe the level of Ronaldo, on the level of peak Rooney, but he held this level that was one of the best in the Premier League for a span of almost 20 years. And I think he needs to be recognized for that. So those are my selections to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame in March. I do want to say there are so many other fantastic players that will be inducted, obviously, in later years. It's just that they're only doing 2 in 2020. So I do want to say the likes of Eric Cantona, Dennis Bergkamp, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, John Terry, and Paul Scholes, and many other fantastic players will be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame in the future. But we had to be very select on this one, and the criteria was very strict. And I think, in my opinion, the best 2 players are Thierry Henry and Alan Shearer in terms of being inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. So Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more amazing soccer content, and follow me on Instagram at the Fergie Time Podcast. Anyways, thank you and take it easy. Peace.